I am the second son of Palestinian refugees and a first-generation American immigrant who holds the same refugee status as my parents. I was born in Palestine's West Bank in 1992, however moved to the US at the age of 2. My life in Michigan was very normal. Looking back at it, it would be hard to even assess that I was an immigrant. I participated in a soccer league, I collected Pokemon cards at recess, and at the age of 9, my parents even got me a skateboard. However, skateboarding was never really a simple hobby for me. In fact, from the age of 9 and the next decade that followed, I don't think there was a single day that I did not skateboard. And something happened to me after I graduated from undergrad. I decided to go back to Palestine for the first time in over 10 years with intentions of learning Arabic and sort of to rekindle a lost identity. And as any rational skater would do, I brought my skateboard with me. Not entirely sure why or when I would use it, but just in case. And one random day, and to my great surprise, I found 4 kids on skateboards in a small village in the West Bank on accident. Now, Bethlehem and Jerusalem are pretty popular holy sites, and they're like half an hour away from me at this point. And I'm not one to claim spiritual revelations, but this was holy. Palestine had a skate scene. I spent the rest of that summer skating with these kids and learning about their trials, tribulations, and how and why they skateboard. I kept wanting to know more. And then I got this idea of making a documentary. The documentary was going to follow these skaters and share their stories about not only the skate scene in the West Bank, but about the power of skateboarding. Now, keep in mind, none of this was ever planned from the outset. In fact, the only plan that still stood was that I was supposed to attend law school 2 weeks after I arrived back to Michigan. And it's interesting, you know? I spent the entire time in a conflict zone, and you see some pretty scary things. However, I don't think anything is quite as frightening as an Arab mother after you tell her you're going to drop out of law school. I arrived back to Michigan on August 10th, and I dropped out of law school on August 11th. And 6 months later, I packed my bags for the West Bank again. I still had all my contacts with the Palestinian skaters, and I started skateboarding with them the second I got back. This time, however, I began to really study why skateboarding is such an important tool for them. And it makes a lot of sense. Reason number 1, the Palestinian society is a very young one. Young Palestinians under the age of 24 make up 54% of the overall population. The adolescent and youth cohort hold the majority within the Palestinian people. However, this 54% live a life drastically different from that of you or I. Implications from decades of military occupation have imposed geographic restrictions, social fragmentation, and an overall marginalization that has effectively extinguished the prospect of a life capable of being normal. This contrast, compared to the reality of my childhood, was drastically relevant when speaking to young Palestinians and realizing that their narrative is absent of hope and inundated with frustration. The United Nations Children's Fund reports that adolescents are becoming more vulnerable to aggression, rebellion, risk-taking behavior, helplessness, frustration, and withdrawal. Young Palestinians are overwhelmingly dissatisfied with their current state of living, yet do not have the appropriate means to overcome many of the circumstances that lead to this frustration. While doing interviews, I asked 17-year-old skater Aram, how was growing up in the West Bank? And he responded, it pushes you away from Palestine. It gives you thoughts to get out of the prison. Why their frustration was in turn frustrating me is because I realized that their future is dependent on a positive mentality, as a positive mentality for young people serves as the upper infrastructure for a positive future. This positive outlook is what is missing, and this is precisely where skateboarding comes into play. Skaters from around the world can acknowledge, just like I did some 15 years ago, that skateboarding is not only a hobby, skateboarding is not only a sport, but that skateboarding is a tool for self-development. By skating, you challenge yourself every day, interact with your peers, and create a positive and healthy outlet to set goals, relieve stress, and increase self-esteem. Skateboarding is this missing link. By reactivating youth potential and sparking this latent self-progression, skateboarding is capable of transcending this loss of dignity and hope. I did another interview with Abdullah, and I asked him, "What is your favorite part about skateboarding?" And he said, "When you skate, you feel like you are free. You have your own thing, and it keeps you going." Reason number 2, skateboarding in the context of the West Bank is a new form of nonviolent resistance. It's a way for kids to not only feel free, but it's a symbol for their civil disobedience. Skaters have always had this outlaw status, right? I mean, when you think of your typical skater, you think of a tenacious, strong-willed rebel trying to raise hell, trying to resist society or the mundane. The skaters in Palestine have appropriated an aspect of this dissident persona, and whether implicitly or not, they are sending the message that they are refusing the status quo. No one in the world expects or expected Palestinians to skateboard. So when a group of kids reveal that instead of risking their lives or getting into a clash with Israeli soldiers, that they're demonstrating in a different way, that they are not throwing rocks, but that they are throwing down kickflips. I mean, that's powerful. As noted by Abdullah, skating gives a message that no matter what you do, whatever you do, we're going to keep skating and we're going to live. We deserve to live. I volunteered with Skate Pal that summer, which is a charity organization that aims to foster skateboarding in the West Bank. And I hosted lessons with at-risk youth. And during these classes, kids would rush to the ramp screaming with joy, waiting in line impatiently for their skateboards, ecstatic to skate for that 1 hour and a half. It was a type of joy you don't see from kids there. Like I mentioned earlier, most kids don't really have a very positive outlook, let alone the ability to smile on a daily basis. But what I found out, though, was that if you give them a skateboard, you get this, and this, and this. Something so simple, yet its function is pushing kids across borders. Skateboarding is not only a multidimensional sport, but a multidimensional tool challenging the way adolescents and youth live their lives in Palestine. The infinity of skateboarding also does lie within me, though, as skateboarding was a device that assimilated me into my American identity as a child. I learned how to varial kickflip before I was a citizen of this country. Yet 15 years later, it was the same device that let me understand and explore my Palestinian identity. I saw myself in these kids, and they did the same. All because a simple piece of wood with 4 wheels attached to the bottom. It not only changed my life, but it is also changing theirs.